Hello, once again, welcome back to Philly Sports Spotlight. You know, prior to the break, I told you I would give you my take on University of Oregon head football coach Chip Kelly on whether or not he could make that transition from college to the pros, not something that has been met with great success by some of his predecessors. The question was, would his gimmick offense translate to the NFL? Well, he was asked that question during the press conference at last week's Fiesta Bowl, and here's what he had to say.
I mean, I get asked the question, but I don't think anybody knows any answers until someone does it. But I think the Washington Redskins are doing a pretty good job with, I forgot the name of their quarterback, but I think he's done a decent job, and the kid at Carolina has done a pretty good job, you know, but it depends. You know, I don't know. You know, I've never coached in that league, and I've visited practices and talked to people about it, but, you know, the one thing about that and the one thing about everything is that you got to have good players. You know, I think sometimes the coaching aspect is way overrated. We don't play the game. You know, I think college football is a personnel-driven game. The National Football League is a personnel-driven game, and your job as a coach, very simply, is to put your players in position where they can make plays and then get out of the way and let them go make them.
So as we know, Kelly has actually withdrawn his name. He's going to go back to Oregon. I'm sure that all the Oregon juniors are going to be seniors are happy about that. I will tell you, though, I know Chip Kelly personally. He's a fellow UNH alum. He was offensive coordinator, offensive line coach in New Hampshire. He's the kind of guy that would adjust to whatever situation he had. I wish I had more time to tell you about that. What I would like to find out is what Ken thought about Chip's decision. Charles, by the way, is his real name. Chip's decision to kind of stay at Oregon and not come out.
You know, Chip Kelly's an innovative guy, successful at Oregon. The one thing that people have to remember is some of these college coaches are making so much money. The jump to the NFL is not necessarily a financial windfall. If they've got a comfortable position without that much pressure, what's the incentive for them to jump to the NFL? It looks like Chip wants to stay where he's at.
Which he does. He has Nike owner Phil Knight backing him out there in Oregon. Well, down the stretch, the final 3 years of Andy Reid's era did not sit well with team ownership or you, the fans. There was the personal struggles with his two oldest sons, of course, which culminated in the death of one of them, the untimely death of his son Garrett at Eagles training camp. And then the on-the-field record the last 2 years, 12-20. 2 seasons, not very good, but my good friend Ken Dunnick here is to tell you that not everything was bad during Big Red's tenure.
No, as we look at in my opinion, the Reid top 5 moments of his career here, of course the ultimate is the Super Bowl. That's what everybody plays for, and they fell short in the game, but they did get there. It's really, as a football player and as a coach, it is the ultimate achievement. It's what you lift the weights for, as Bill Parcells used to say. It's why you run all those wind sprints. It's really the main reason why you play the game, and they did get there. Unfortunately, they didn't bring home the prize, but getting there is quite an achievement.
And he had some very good players on that roster, on both sides of the ball. And I will tell you, that video you just saw is, I'm very proud to say, I shot that. It was personal video I shot. I covered that Super Bowl that year, so you're seeing it for the first time. You're welcome. By the way, when Andy took over as head coach, both he and team owner Jeffrey Lurie had a plan to get to the Super Bowl in 5 years, which they did. But he also did something that helped him in the early part of his tenure, the early 2000s to the mid-2000s. He surrounded himself with great assistants. One assistant in particular was really what helped him get him his success.
Absolutely. You know, some of the assistants that have been through the Reid family, John Harbaugh, who's having success with the Baltimore Ravens right now, Leslie Frazier, who again was a head coach in the NFL, just got bounced out with the Minnesota Vikings. But the guy who stands out is Jim Johnson. You know, when Jim Johnson passed away, the Eagles defense took a turn for the worse. And it's just hard to replace a guy that had that much talent. And as you and I have talked about in the past, Jim Johnson actually turned down some head coaching possibilities in the league, and the Eagles stepped up and paid him commensurate to a head coach in the NFL because they felt so strongly about him as a defensive coordinator.
You know, it's funny. You and I have had this talk before about the Reid-Vermeil comparison. People love Jim Johnson. Why? Because Eagle fans love defense in this town. That's why Buddy Ryan was such a big hit. But, yeah, you know, God rest his soul, Jim Johnson. Now, the third best moment on your list of the Reid era was met with some negative energy at the time. And if you don't remember that moment, let us refresh your memory.
The second pick, the Philadelphia Eagles select Donovan McNabb, quarterback, Syracuse University.
Of course, those boos coming from a group of Eagle fans that went to New York that day. They were hoping that the Eagles would draft Texas running back Ricky Williams. As it turned out, despite all those boos, Andy Reid and the Eagles made the right choice at that time.
Yeah, you know, guys on the board that are high around that era, Achilles Smith and Tim Couch, were big busts in the NFL. Andy Reid, there was a consensus in the city to take Ricky Williams, but a franchise quarterback is very hard to come by. They did get one with Donovan McNabb. Now, he did come up small in some pretty big spots, as we know, during his career, but he did lead him to the promised land, and I think that's one of Reid's top moments.
Well, I'll tell you that during the last NFC Championship game against Arizona, he actually brought the team back from 19 down, and then, of course, he threw his defense under the bus by saying the defense could not hold the lead. Ironically, one of Reid's best free agent signings might have been the one move that signified the beginning of Andy's downfall as far as judging character traits is concerned.
Yeah, I have Terrell Owens as one of the best moments and one of the worst. You know, Terrell was a challenge from a team standpoint. They brought him in. He did a great job in that first year. And actually his performance in that Super Bowl was one of the greatest performances, in my opinion, in Super Bowl history. I think he had about 11 catches with 2 screws in his ankle, did everything possible to get back on the field. But, you know, as you look at as his career went on with Philadelphia, he became a bit of a malcontent, had some contract issues, and Andy found it necessary to first suspend him and then to finally cut ties with him.
Yeah, that whole thing was a shame because when he first came to town, if you remember the thousands of people that went to training camp, to CTO, and those two together, Donovan and Terrell Owens, if they'd been able to somehow find a way to coexist, they could have done some unbelievable things record-wise.
And the first play in the preseason that year, Donovan hit Terrell Owens for a touchdown, and there were high hopes in town. And again, they did get to the Super Bowl, but it wasn't enough.
Yeah, unfortunately. All right, once again, thanks to our good friend Ken Dunning for his insight on this week's show. Some good topics, as usual, for all of you to marinate on as the Eagles continue to search for their new head coach. By the way, Ken, when you're not here, what is it you're doing?
Jersey Man Magazine 24/7, the only men's publication in Philadelphia, New Jersey. If you like sports, politics, business, check out jerseymanmagazine.com.
Okay, I'm still waiting for my cover shot. Just kidding, folks. All right, listen, it's time to take another break. When we return, the governor of Pennsylvania looking to sue the NCAA. We'll tell you what that's all about when we return on Philly Sports Spotlight. Don't go away.